Okay, well, I think we've got a pretty full room. If anyone comes, we will go ahead and welcome them as well. We are from Team 2220, and I'm Jane Peterson. I'm a mentor with the team.
I'm Shreyas. I'm an outreach lead on the team, and I've done judging or interacting with judges for the past few, like a year or so. So, yeah.
Yeah, and he did impact
I did
presentation
impact and
last year.
presentations last year, yeah. So,
Yeah, so, and I have been a judge for about 10 years, so I've judged, our team likes to travel, so we've been to competitions all around the US, and I volunteer to judge at almost every one we go to. So I've judged like out in California, down in Missouri and Kansas, Wisconsin. We were up in Canada one year, so just wherever our team goes, I volunteer, and I think it's a really good experience. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we can tell the teams about that is not confidential, so that's what I'm here to do today. There are certainly some things that we talk about in the judges' room that cannot leave the judges' room, so those things will remain confidential, but I do think it's really good if the teams go into the judging process with as much knowledge as they can have. So that's what I wanted to do today, was bring this information to the teams to share. So at regionals, there's machine and team attribute awards. How many of you are new this year? Okay, there's a few of you. Okay, so at an event, there's two types of judges that will come around usually to the pits. One is going to judge machine attributes, and one is going to judge team attributes, and we'll go into a little more detail on what those are. There's also what's called match observers, and those are judges who sit at the playing field and watch the teams play. And they look at the behavior of the teams. They look for core values there. If you've heard of FIRST core values, those are things that we want to see demonstrated on the playing field. We want to know that you're working collaboratively with your partners and that you are showing the values that we want, as well as cooperation. First Impact Award and Dean's List interviews are done in separate judging rooms, so we're not going to talk about those today. I've talked about some of those in the past. And if you have any questions on those, I'm willing to answer those afterwards, but that's not going to be the focus of our discussion today. The judges do wear blue polo shirts, and you can see them here in the picture, these two. And they will say FRC judge on them, so you will know who they are when they come into the pits. Also know that the judges are everywhere. They are at the competition, they are at the field, they are in the restrooms, they are at the concession stand, they are in the pits, even when they're not judging. So bear that in mind and show and demonstrate your gracious professionalism the entire time you are at the event. We have had cases where the judges have been in maybe just randomly different areas of the venue, and if they see behavior that is not GP, that can get reported into the judges' room, and it can be considered. It's not always, but it can be, just so be aware of that. And we always say for our team, anytime you're at an event, you want to be GP the whole time you're there anyway. If you're wearing our team shirt, we want you to demonstrate gracious professionalism the whole time that you are at that event. Okay. You want to do this one?
yeah, sure. Okay, so judging at regionals, judging is all day on Friday and Saturday morning for most regionals. And they will always be around, as Ms. Peterson said. Judges will have limited time to interview teams, so they will be roaming around the pit, going to teams on their schedule. But they're also usually interviewing teams for multiple awards at once. I remember last year, they asked us questions about almost everything that I tried to answer as much as I could. I mean, they're always, you never know what they're actually judging for. They're usually asking all types of questions, but unless they're unless you know they're like robot judges, they'll usually just ask robot questions. But if they're asking team attribute questions, they'll ask all types of questions. So it's like, you need to try answering as much as you can, but also try to convert the conversation to where you want to go in terms of.
I would say a couple things. One is, if you don't know the answer to a question, you can say you don't know, or call in a teammate to help answer the question. They want to hear from multiple people, so it's perfectly acceptable for you to say, oh, I didn't work on that, but Joe over here, he worked on it, and he can help answer that question. So pull other people into that conversation. They don't expect one person to know everything about your team. So keep that in mind.
And it's important to get everybody or most people on your team to talk at least once to the judges. I think that'll show that your team is well equipped in everything, or like most people know stuff about the team. So
I also say that these awards we're talking about today, the machine attribute and the team attribute awards, are team awards. They are not individual awards. So they want to hear from more than one person on the team. So Dean's List is an individual award. That's where they want to hear one person talk about what they did. But for these awards, they want to hear from, a number of people on your team. And if you have people that worked on different things, you should have those people talk about whatever they worked on, or whatever they participated in, or how they contributed to the team.
And yeah, again, judges are everywhere, so they're always going to be roaming the pits, even when they're not asking your team the question. They might still be looking at you guys and seeing what you guys do. So again, maintaining GP and being safe is a very big thing as well.
Go ahead.
Okay, so questions judges ask. Machine judges and team attribute judges ask different questions, and it's important, as we said, to take your time and think about what you're going to answer. It's fine if you take a while to actually think about it. They want you to answer it carefully. So just take a second, think about what you're going to say, and yeah, just be ready for any questions that comes up as well. And these questions that you see here, these are publicly available as well. There's going to be a link on the next slide, but you can find these if you just go to the first website and find judging, the judging playbook or whatever.
It's on the next page.
Yeah, it's on the next page.
But these, go
Right
back
there.
to the previous one. This list of questions is the list of questions the judges get as suggested questions to ask. The judges may use these questions, or they may not. Or they may start with these questions, and then they may take a turn and ask about some different things based on how you answer them. One thing Sharia said earlier, though, is important, and that is, you want to talk about what you think your team has done the best at, or where your team has excelled, or where your team is better or more creative or unique than other teams. So when the judges ask you a question, try to weave that into the conversation. And a lot of times, and when you see some of these questions, and I'll give an example on the machine questions, what's your favorite feature on the robot? You can talk about anything you want on the robot. So if you think there's one feature that's really unique or outstanding on your robot, that's your opening. You can take a number of these questions and say, that's my opening to talk about the thing that I think is the most amazing thing about our robot. So think about it that way, that you want to, and the judges actually are trying to get the best information they can from the teams. They are trying to give you kind of open questions to say, tell me what you're really good at. Tell me, what's best about your robot. Tell me how you designed this. Tell me, and even on the team attribute side, a lot of times one of the opening questions might be, tell me about your team. What direction do you want to take that? And it depends on what your team is good at. If your team is really good at outreach, talk about that. If your team is really good at fundraising, talk about that. If your team is really good about advocacy, talk about that. So just use those questions to go in the direction you want to go, because really the judges are trying to get you That's why they have open-ended questions. They're trying to get you to talk about the things that you're good at and to try to figure out what those things are for each team. And they're not the same for every team. So talk about that among your team before you go to an event to try to figure out what should be our focus when the judges come to the pit. What do we want to make sure we talk about? They have a limited time, so make sure you're going to be talking about the things that are most important to your team or the things that are going to really highlight where your team excels.
Yeah, and then as Ms. Peterson said, I think practicing the questions are the best thing to do before the judges are roaming around the pits.
We
So-
actually, if we're traveling to an event, we will do this on the bus.
we do.
We will we'll have students called up to the front of us and we'll just run through the list of questions and we'll have all of the students kind of run through that because it's good practice for them to have thought about this. And every student's answer may be different. So like what I think is the most cool on the robot, that isn't the thing he thinks is most cool because he maybe worked on part of the robot that I didn't work on. So it's okay to have different answers. You want the answers to be authentic and you want the students to be passionate about the answers and show excitement about whatever it is that they worked on and whatever it is they think is the most amazing thing about their robot or about their team.
And I think one thing is make sure that everybody is ready for a question that they could be asked, because if, for example, a judge comes in when like you're at the when you're playing a game or playing a match and there's only one person there who doesn't know how to answer a question or anything, you don't want that, because then that's a problem, right? If they go the wrong way or like they say something that they shouldn't, it gets a bit problematic. So I think make your team or be prepared for any question that could be asked towards you. Even if you don't think you're a good speaker or if you don't think they'll come and ask you a question, you never know when they will. So I think that's why practicing is a
Yep. So the judges they get a list of teams they need to interview for either machine attribute or team attribute judges generally. And they have a limited time. So when they come to the pit, maybe your team is at a match and you don't have people there to talk about your robot or to talk about your team. You can ask the judges to come back later. Generally, I would say they will do that, especially like the first time. But if they come back 3 times and you haven't been in the pit and aren't ready to answer questions, they're not going to have as much patience. And they don't have to come back later. They can ask anybody whatever questions they have on their list. So it's better for your team if you're prepared and you have people there. One of the other things we've done is if we have a very small number of people at the competition and we have a match, we'll just say
Clear the
pit's closed, everybody go to the match, and then after the match we come back and that's when we're available for judges. So if you have a small team, that's just the way you have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are this is called the award workbook. This is available on the FIRST website. You have to dig a little bit to find it, but it's there. It's called the award workbook, and this is what it looks like. There are 6 machine attribute awards. So those are the Autonomous Award, Creativity Award, Industrial Design, Innovation and Control, and Quality. So those are the machine attribute awards that go with the machine attribute questions that we saw on the previous page. There are 6 to 8 team attribute awards, and I say 6 to 8 because some of them are rookie awards, and if there are no rookies at the event, they don't give out the award. So those awards are Engineering Inspiration, Gracious Professionalism, which we mentioned already, Imagery Award, Judges Award, Rising All-Star, Rookie All-Star, Team Spirit, and Team Sustainability. The Rising All-Star is a relatively new one, and the one thing to note about that one is that you do not have to be a new team to get that award. I have seen very experienced teams, actually, just in the last year, get that award. And the key thing that you want to know is that you need to read the award descriptions. This is the same book, same workbook that the judges get. They use these descriptions to decide which teams are gonna get which awards. And if there's a question or during the discussion, this is what we use. This is the document that we look at. We don't have anything else. There's no secret. It's all put out there for you, and you can see the descriptions. So what you can do too is if you think about it, if you think your team is really good at, like maybe you think your engineering process is amazing, and you think you're a candidate for Excellence in Engineering Award, be very clear in talking to the judges how you have met those guidelines, how you have done each of the bullet points listed there. So that's why I think this workbook is super important for the teams to be looking at and the students to be looking at. One of the other key things I want to point out on this, and I'm going to give an example, the Autonomous Award. So sometimes I've heard teams say, I don't know why that team got the Autonomous Award. They weren't really the best autonomous team. And that absolutely can and does happen. And it is for a very good reason. The reason is that even if, like take Reefscape from last year, if your team in the autonomous, the first 15 seconds of the match, could score 4 coral during autonomous, the first 15 seconds in week 1, you would have been an amazing robot. Would you win the Autonomous Award for that? You could, yeah, she's going maybe. What is a reason that you might not win the Autonomous Award?
Depends on how you describe it. This happened to us during Crescendo. We had a really good auto where it could get the note from anywhere, even the opposing side.
Exactly, exactly. And if you read these descriptions, it says in here, under the guidelines, almost every one of the awards, it says, a team must be able to describe. And then it goes on to say what the requirements of the award are.
The problem was our programmer downplayed it a little bit. It was actually, it should have won.
So sometimes your programmer might not even be in the pit. Mm-hmm. Or if your programmer isn't a good speaker, or maybe they haven't practiced talking to judges. So yeah, you want to really promote what your team is good at. You want to sound excited about it. You want to build it up. And then you need to be able to describe it. That's super key because over and over again in this award workbook, it says a team must be able to describe. A team must be able to describe. So that is why the judges come out and interview the teams, because they really are looking for what have the students learned? What can they explain to someone else? What have they gotten out of the first program? So those are the important things about the award workbook. Does that help? Does that, I see people nodding like, oh, maybe you didn't realize all this before. But this is available. And we're not going to go through every detail of all the awards. If you have questions, I can certainly answer them. But the guidelines are in here. The other comment I'll make is that if there are, like, on the guidelines, if there are 3 bullet points, you don't have to meet all 3. If you meet one and you do it really, really well, and you're amazing at it and passionate about talking about it, you could win for meeting one of the points. So don't downplay your team and don't think that you're not qualified for an award because you're a small team or maybe because your robot isn't the best robot out there. Look at the award descriptions and find at least a couple of things where your team stands out and be ready to talk about those things. Okay, questions on that, on the workbook? Everybody's happy? Okay, all right.
Okay, so interviewing in the pits. We've said we've both gone over this. Judges not only want to hear from the students, not the mentors. The mentors, personally from what I've seen being in the pits, our mentors don't usually hang around the pits. They're usually judging anyway or like doing robot stuff. So they're usually not there, or if they are there, they're usually ignoring the judges because they don't want to hear from them. They want to hear from the students. So make sure you have students in the pits. They could be even when the robot is there. Make sure some students are answering the questions if you're working on your robot between matches. And they could interview any team members. It could be anybody sitting there. And even if they don't ask a question to the person, or if you're like sitting down and working with the robot, for example, and they ask a question that you might know how to answer or you're really good at answering, then jump in, right? It doesn't, you can, what I've done is if there's a question that I know how to answer or I've answered well, I usually just jump in anyway. Because they like that. They like the enthusiasm that you show in answering these questions. So yeah, if you know how to answer a question, I think jumping in is a great idea. And then awards are decided based on how well a team meets the guidelines and how well the students can explain how they meet the guidelines. As Ms. Peterson said, looking at the workbook is a great resource. Understanding the bullet points and understanding what the description, how you can describe it, that'll really help. And judges may interview teams in the pit, the queuing line, practice field. As we said, they are anywhere and everywhere. So they could.
And the key there is that they're just trying to make sure they get the interviews done, and they don't want to short a team by saying, well, they weren't in the pit. Well, maybe they were having robot issues and they were at the practice field a lot of the time. Then the judges actually will come over to the practice field, especially if you have your robot there and it's a robot judge. They can come over and ask you about your robot. What are you working on? What are you are you having issues with something, or what are you trying to get working really well? Maybe you're trying to get your autonomous fine-tuned or whatever. But it's an opportunity for the judges to talk to the team, especially if you're not in your pit a lot of the time, then they might try to track you down in other places. And they are allowed to complete that interview at those other locations. It doesn't have to be at your pit. So just keep that in mind. If you're not gonna, staff your pit to have kids there to answer questions all the time, that's okay. But then understand that the judges may come looking for you if they can't find you, because they want you to get your interview. Every team should expect to get 2 sets of judges, and it could be the same set, but the judges should visit 2 times and talk about machine or robot questions and team attributes.
Okay, I think let's get into some of the tips that I've learned and I've used. So tip number 1 is speaking slowly. Speak at a comfortable pace. You don't have to speak really fast, even if you're nervous. Just take a deep breath, think about the question before you actually answer it. And it's okay to stumble once in a while, but just like slow down, you don't want to get your brain ahead of your mouth, if that makes sense. You don't want to answer too quickly, so just take your time. I think that's one of the most important things that I've learned. Anything you have?
Good.
Tip 2, eye contact. I think that's big. You want to be looking at the judges because they know that you're confident. Maintain eye contact. It's okay to, look around, I guess, but just try maintaining eye contact. It conveys confidence and it'll help you stay concentrated into the question and everything. So that's a big one. Tip 3, we've said this a lot, have several people available to talk to judges. Judges prefer outreach that involves several members of the team and not just 1 or 2 answering the questions. So it's good that a bunch of people know how to answer questions, how to talk to judges. And when they arrive, make sure they contribute as well. So it allows the team to appear unified and inclusive, like I said. And even if, again, like she said, if you have a small team traveling to a regional, and you don't have that many people available to be in the pits and working with the robot as well, clear the pits. You want to have as many people available to talk to judges. And if you see, like, if the judges go to the practice area, I'm sure you can, jump over there and
Yep.
answer questions as well.
Sometimes some of the teams will have specific people that they have trained and want to talk to the judges, and that's fine, but the judges don't necessarily have to wait for them. So sometimes, I know, I will sometimes go to a pit and they'll say, oh, our speakers aren't here, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna be here for about 10 minutes, so if you wanna call them, I'm gonna start with some questions and they can join in when they get here. So it's not that I'm trying to exclude them, but because we're on a schedule, we need to make sure we get through all the team interviews we have assigned to us. So, as a team, you can decide how you want to manage that. Do you want to have people kind of stationed at the pit the whole time? Do you want to have them up in the stands and then call them down? Do you want to have them, they can be part of the robot team too, and they can be your main speakers, and then they might be in the pit most of the time anyway. So, actually, sometimes what we do too is we put together a schedule of, who's gonna be in the pit, and then if a couple people are gonna go to lunch, just make sure we have a couple other people there to answer judge questions if judges do show up.
Yeah, I think I remember at our last one of our regionals, we had a small team going, and we had a schedule on who's gonna stay in the pits, who's gonna be in the robot, because we have some people who did robot stuff, who wanted to do robot stuff, help out with the robot, so if they were busy, and then, it just keeps the schedule moving and gives other people time to do other things they want or go get snacks, get lunch. So I think if you're a small team, having a few people there having a schedule, I think that's a good idea. Tip 4, using handouts. If you have a tech binder or an outreach handout, it can be very helpful to refer to that when answering a judge's question. We usually make both, and if they ask a question about our outreach or how we do sustainability, we have a big book, we flip to the page, and then we're like, here, this is our sustainability, you can take a look at this. And I think what we do is we make a bunch of copies to keep in the pits, one to give to judges, both the tech binder and the outreach handout. Even if the judges aren't a robot judge or a outreach judge, you can still give them the book. It's not like they're gonna throw it away, they're gonna keep it, they'll give it to you. They'll give it back to you after the regional. And it helps a lot, actually. If you forget something, but it's in the book, you can still and this is there, So, and then pictures on the books, or just even, instead of a whole binder or anything, just like a poster highlighting your main things, like your robot, your team name, and then some big things you want to highlight on your poster, or big things that you've done during the regional, throughout the year. That's also good to be on.
Another thing you can do is, some teams make books, even a one-page handout that says, here's the capability of our robot, here's what our intake does, here's what our shooter does, here's what we do in autonomous. And a picture of your robot so that the judges can take that back to the judges' room and go, oh yeah, they showed me this cool thing about their robot, and here's what it looks like, and here's what it does. It doesn't have to be a long book. It can be just a few pages. It can be one page. But I think having both is actually really helpful. If you can have one page minimum about your robot and one page minimum about your team and your outreach, that would be amazing. And you can talk about, for outreach, we did a parade during the summer, we did a camp, we did a Girl Scout badging event, and a picture of each of those, and then we also mentored an FLL team, and here's a picture of the team, or whatever. But to give the judges some sense that here's the scope of what our team has done.
And one thing that we did last year, which I found very helpful, was bookmarking more important pages that you have. If you have a big book, bookmarking them, adding post-it notes so you can quickly flip to that. That also helps a lot.
Another thing is the first impact award documentation form. And they've made a few changes this year, so I encourage all the teams to go look out on the first website about the awards if you're really interested in this part of the robotics. They are asking us to submit a link to this now this year. Usually it was just fill this out and you can bring it. This year they're saying there's a link. It's kind of like the video. If you're gonna do a First Impact video, you can submit the link. One of the things to keep in mind about the link is that you can, if you keep that link the same, you can update the file that's in that link. So both for your video and for your outreach documentation form, you can continue to make updates up until, they say on the documentation form, have the final version out there a week before your event, because the judges may go in and look at it. So be sure to get it done, not the day before you leave, but a week before you leave, so that the judges have a chance to go out and look at it.
I think one thing also, instead of, if you don't want to do handouts as well, I've seen teams do, they've brought, this is crazy, they brought TVs and everything, and then they've put that in front of their pits, and they've made a slideshow just keep looping. So even teams can look at that and see what they've done. Or I've seen like big posters also put out, so if you don't want to do handouts, if you want to do something a bit bigger to include more info, big posters, slideshows, they're also really good. Tip 5, remembering the core values. The first core values, discovery, innovation, impact, teamwork, inclusion, and fun. Judges like the teams that display more than one of these first core values, and it's beneficial to include one of the core values and explain how it connects back to your team's activities. So if judges come to the pit, or even if you're talking about impact, if you're in the impact award, you can always connect your response to the core values. It's very big. I feel we did that last year and it helped a lot, personally.
Yep, very good.
And then tip 6, practice. I think practice is very important. I was an impact judge impact presenter last year, and I think the amount of practice that I did and my friends who did it with me did, that really helped. And make sure those people can answer the questions, answer any questions, even if they're not impact judges. Like if they're pit judges, if you're answering questions to pit judges, make sure everybody can answer, and then practice like we've done on the bus. You can practice before the regional, practice anywhere, you know, I think.
Yeah, one of the good ways to practice is bring in a couple of parents or people who are maybe not even as familiar with your team. Maybe some other mentors who don't work with the First Impact Award team or even work on awards, but have them give them the list of questions and have them listen to the answers. Because there's a lot of things that the teams sort of know that not all the judges are gonna know. So one thing you should know about the judges is they're not all mentors on teams. So they don't all know the FIRST robotics program. They are often from sponsor companies. So they might be maybe a Medtronic employee who doesn't mentor a team. And so they're not gonna know all the first core values, or they're not gonna know all the things that you might need to know about, like gracious professionalism or that sort of thing. Now what they will do is they will pair up a new judge with an experienced judge. So it's not the case where you're gonna get a team that's totally new. You're gonna have usually at least one person who has done it before. And they will be more familiar with the FIRST robotics program. But you do have some judges who are less experienced with it. And that's where you want to make sure that however the students are explaining what you're working on makes sense to sort of a lay person and not necessarily just someone who works in the robotics area.
I think when we practice, we usually bring in, as Ms. Peterson said, mentors that don't work with outreach, and I think their questions are usually a bit harder to answer, in my opinion, because you're not expecting it, because the mentors that do outreach, or like people who have seen these questions, they ask the questions from the worksheet or things related to the worksheet, but judges or people who don't or aren't involved in outreach, they can ask any question, and then it just you don't know how to answer it, and it gets really hard. So I think that's like sometimes we get like questions that just you don't expect, and it's like, how do I answer this?
And that can happen
That can
in
happen
the
at
judges'
anywhere.
room
It
too,
can happen
or
at
in
the
the
Impact
pit?
Award when they're in
Yeah.
the pits. It can happen anywhere. So I think even if you don't know how to answer it, try to answer it. Take your time. Practice with those kinds of things. Getting people who don't work in outreach or related to
Yeah.
those. Tip 7, our last tip. Just be yourself. Judges want to talk to you and hear your team's unique stories. They want to hear what you've done on the team, so don't try to be like your friend who did something better and you're like, hey, he did something better, but he's not here right now, so I'll try being him. That's, in my opinion, not a good idea.
I always encourage the students to talk about things they've worked on. So if I have one student that mentored an FLL team, I'm like, that's what you should talk about when you talk to the judges. If I have another student who was like, well, I programmed this really cool autonomous feature on the robot that we use during teleop, and I want the judges to know about that, then that's what they should talk about. So really work to the strengths of the student and work that into whatever the judges' questions are. And if you have several people available, you can always address the judge's question, hopefully in a really unique way for your team, and that shows your best effort and where your team really excels.
And even if both your people are, like, if you have two programmers answering a question about autonomous, they can be like, oh yeah, I did this part on the autonomous, and then he did this part, he can tell you more about what he did on this part. So even if it's the same question you're answering, just, you know, if you have something else to add on to the same question and you're experienced in both alleys, you know, talk about it. Because just be yourself, you know. What
Yeah, and
you
there are
did-
cases where I've gone in and just said, tell me what you did on the robot. Did you work, oh, you did outreach? Okay, tell me what you did about outreach, you know, tell me what you did. Because I expect different answers from all those kids, because I don't think that you all did the same thing. You have a whole team, and different people on the team are working on a whole variety of things, and you want to highlight that whole scope of what the team is doing when you talk to the judges.
Yep, and then confidence is important to presenting your team well. So make sure you have good posture, smile on your face, are engaged in what they're asking, and, you know, just appear respectful, all that. So just maintain GP as well there. Yeah. Good luck. Have fun, guys. You
Are
know,
there any questions?
yes, any questions?
You guys are all ready to go out and attack.
The funny
You're gonna
part
go look
is,
this up now, right?
Yeah. The funny part is, I had questions, but you already answered all of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. If you do have any, if you want to contact us, that's our team email up there. Our website is also team2220.org, as well as eganrobotics.com, and we also have a helpline, Reach for the Stars helpline. It's part of our initiative to support other first teams, and it's a focus on impact and engineering inspiration awards, as well as sustainability. So if you have any questions on those related, or even anything related to outreach, fill out your submission and we can answer them.
Yeah, and we will talk one-on-one with teams if you guys want
A one-on-one meeting.
special assistance or questions about any of the awards. We're happy to help.
Thank you.